Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Dental Unfiltered. I'm Mathew Brown. I'm here with my normal co-host, Andrew Vallo. Today we have a really awesome subject. I think it doesn't get enough attention, and it is effective morning huddles. And what I will tell you, this is something I'm passionate about. When I'm interviewing a new practice that's coming to work with me, I ask them a question about morning huddles, and their response tells me a lot. What I will tell you is I have zero successful practices that don't do morning huddles. So first, doc, office manager, whoever you are, if you're listening, if I ask you the question, do you do morning huddle? And your answer is something like, well, we used to, or we do, or sometimes doc doesn't show up for it, or not everyone is there. What I will tell you is if you're struggling with collections and that's your answer, that is the tip of the iceberg of a whole lot of problems. It's just a question that I ask, and when I get a question, I get an answer that's kind of wishy-washy like that, and I look at your collections and they're 50, 60, 70,000 a month, and you're feeling like you're not doing a good job, well, I'll tell you where it starts is fundamentals, and there's zero successful practices that don't have morning huddle. So it's something I'm really passionate about, and Andrew, I know for a fact is, and I'm really interested to hear Andrew's view on this, but if you're not doing morning huddle, doc, and you're not making sure you're there as a leader, let's start off with that you're probably failing. So, Andrew, this is a really important subject. It's like making your bed in the morning and starting the day right. How do you feel about morning huddles, man?
Yeah, man. Hey guys, another great topic here today, and this is actually something really interesting for me to talk about because it is something that has developed and changed within my organization as we've grown. When I first opened my first startup, I'll be honest, I was one of those docs where I didn't really want to do morning huddle, so we didn't do morning huddle. As we got bigger, as we added a second office, as I started to step back clinically, being in my mastermind group, talking to other dentists, I started to, realize that there was a significance to having a morning huddle. And so I at that point, decided to delegate it to our, office managers to run those huddles. However, we kind of had a lot of pushback. And so, some of it, I don't know if it's that some of our office managers at the time didn't really believe in the morning huddles. I don't know if it's that they couldn't motivate the team to get excited for the morning huddles. I'm sure some of it was that there wasn't much direction or clarity as far as what I wanted to happen during these morning huddles. It was just kind of like, hey, I want you guys to have a huddle, go ahead and do it. And I feel like we kind of tried to implement it a few times. And, I would just kind of assume that they were happening, and then I would find out that they stopped happening pretty quickly. So, fast forward a little while, and we opened, obviously these two newest offices in January. We've got 4 offices now. We're really trying to become a well-oiled machine. We're trying to become a true company within the dental field. We're trying to increase our team morale. We're trying to increase, our patient experience. We're trying to increase our systemization, our consistency across offices. And we're really paying attention to those small details. And so finally it got to the point where I said, guys, like, I spoke with my leadership team, and we do leadership meetings now where all of our leaders kind of meet together often on Zoom. But I said, guys, like, we need to make these morning huddles a thing, and they need to be happening consistently. Everyone needs to be there. Everyone needs to be on time. And we've got to lay out a roadmap for exactly what we should be talking about and, how these morning huddles should be run. So that, this honestly only happened a few months ago where we finally have implemented these. And I do think it's making a big difference. And I'm excited to get into, some of the specifics as far as what is covered in the morning huddles, how they're run, and how we try to get our leaders and our team members excited for morning huddle to start their day on the right foot. So,
Part of it I find is dentists want to displace their ownership or their responsibility in certain things, and they go, "Oh, I can come in at 9 a.m. The manager will handle 8 a.m. morning huddle." I think that's a really big failure. I think part of the failure is you're not there to know that it's being done to standard. So what happens is they come in, they go, "Hey, doc's not here. let's just talk for a few minutes. And we did morning huddle. Then he shows up at 9. He thinks it happened. He started assuming it happened, and it didn't. Morning huddle really, leadership is the transfer of emotion, right? Like Andrew, everyone talks about, how did you build your 5 practices or 4 practices so fast? And I know you're working on 2 more right now. And I think you have a good way of transferring emotion from you to the next layer, to the next layer, to the next layer, and make sure the transfer goes the right direction. I have my practice all the way down in Texas, and I randomly FaceTime into morning huddle on the office manager's phone, right? Like I'll just call her and say, hey, put me on for morning huddle. And it's on my calendar, morning huddle, and my practice in Texas, right? Me and Ryan are even able to, from North Carolina to Texas, transfer emotion to the team because we meet with the team when we do it. I think when Doc removes themselves from being in that element where the entire team is gathered in one moment, Doc loses the opportunity to transfer the emotion that he needs to those people to get them to be the way he wants them to be. And then what happens is randomness. And randomness is never effective in marketing, never effective in business. Consistency is. And I think, Doc, my opinion is, I'd love to hear your view on this. Not talking about you being a multi-practice owner, but single Doc GP owns one practice, has one team. I think Doc should start and end the morning huddle, and the manager should do the middle. I think he should welcome everyone for being there. He should affirm that I am the leader of the practice. He should let the office manager do the middle, and he should end it positively. And I think that is really critical in the overall culture of the practice. We both know culture is one of the hardest things to, one, develop, but then 2, to maintain. And removing this opportunity to reinforce that, I think, is very, very dangerous. And I think, Doc, if you're listening and you're that Doc that doesn't want to come in for morning huddle, or you run late, I want to say those minutes that you think you're not there for, that you think are better used for yourself, I can promise you are costing you tens of thousands of dollars because you're not getting the most out of your team because you're not leading.
Matt, I think you're right. And I think that was, one of the challenges we faced in the past when we previously had tried to implement morning huddles was that our associate doctors kind of felt like they were exempt from coming. So, the office manager would be there. They try to run the huddle. They try to corral the rest of the team. And a lot of times our doctors either just would show up after huddle, or they'd be there, but they'd be in the other room working on something else, on their phone, whatever it was. So I think that in order for the morning huddles to be effective, you need the entire clinical team. Everybody who's working at the office really needs to be there from the start of the huddle. Everyone needs to be involved in the process. Everyone needs to be alert. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. If 1 or 2 people just aren't showing up, aren't part of it, it kind of makes everybody else feel like it's not that important. And then you're going to lose steam. And the same thing's going to happen that happened to us, is that basically the huddle will just stop happening. And then eventually, you'll talk to your office manager. Oh, yeah, we kind of did it for a while, but then people stopped showing up. We couldn't get people to be on time, whatever. They saw Doc, whatever, sitting over there. So I think if you're going to do the morning huddles, which I think every office should, you need to fully commit. And I agree with you, Matt. If you are practicing full time within your own practice, then you should be part of the morning huddle. Whether you run it or the office manager does, whether you guys share, those duties, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it successfully. But I do feel like if you are there at the office clinically, most days, then you should be there in the huddle. At this point in time, guys, keep in mind, I'm down to 1 day clinically. I've basically stepped into the CEO role for our group. So again, I'm not at the morning huddles, most days. However, something that we are starting to do is having myself or my operations manager randomly show up for a morning huddle at any of our particular offices. So that way it's like, at least the team knows, like, hey, we value them. We are going to be there from time to time to help participate in the huddles. And I think it just kind of helps keep people motivated, keep people on their toes, that type of a thing. We're also starting to do that for some of the team meetings. So, my operations manager showed up for one of our office's team meetings this last week, and, didn't tell the team he was going to be there. And, lo and behold, multiple people showed up late for the meeting. And so It's one of those things where, you do need to delegate certain things within the organization, but you also need to audit and make sure that things are actually happening, the way that you delegated them. Because otherwise, if there is no auditing, it's very easy for things to get off course.
I think you said about everyone being there, right? The moment, like, so from a military point of view, I always use military analogies with this stuff, right? Like, when I was on a long range surveillance team, I did covert surveillance. We were on a 6-man team, right? We went to our mission brief, and it was time to plan our mission. And we went to what's called isolation, where for a week before the mission, we isolated to bond as a team and then to plan the mission out, right? And this is like life or death stuff. This is like my mission back then was anywhere in the world inside of 18 hours, all alone, unafraid, and brave to go handle the mission, right? And the team cohesion of all 6 of us being locked in our team room and in our bunk room together for a week is what built that, right? When you have the team and that one person isn't there because they're doing something else in the practice, you miss out on that team cohesion. But you also miss out on uniform passive information, and that allows for inaccurate operations that day. It is a fundamental flaw for the practicing dentist to not be involved in morning huddle. He is the clinician. He is the brain and the hands that are practicing this dentistry. If he is not involved and he's unaware of things, that's when things happen in the op and we're missing things in the lab. That's when that communication happens, or we got the wrong things in the lab. This stuff comes out during morning huddle. It needs to be 100% all hands meeting, not just for the transfer of emotion, but for uniform passive information for effectiveness of the team. In my opinion, if I ran morning huddle every day in my practice, I would stand there and wait until I had 100% attendance. And I would make a big deal every day about being 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes late. I used to work in New York City, and I lived in South Jersey, and it was a 2-hour commute. And some days I got to work 40 minutes early because there was no traffic. Some days I got to work right on time, but I never got to work late. So I always planned backwards to be there on time. If your staff can't show you the respect of being there for something so fundamental as morning huddle, it might be time to start shopping for other staff for that position, because that is a fundamental basic thing. Like, if you can't make that, that's a serious indicator of how committed you are to the mission of that practice.
Yeah, and I think accountability comes into play here too. And so we're rolling out a new company-wide attendance policy, and part of that attendance policy is being on time. And being on time means being at the office before morning huddle actually starts. So not walking in, late. And so that is something that we are really trying to, make sure that the expectations are clear to the team. Morning huddle is part of your job. And actually one of our office managers had said during a leadership meeting, like, yeah, the team really resists it though, or they show up late. Like, how do I convince them, to take it seriously, show up on time, all that stuff. And our answer was, if they want to continue to be a part of our organization, they're going to be there for morning huddle. And, just, you have to make it a non-negotiable, again, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that you can teach and you can train and you can coach. But your team needs to have the right, first of all, they need to understand why it's important. So, you need to set clear expectations. You need to explain why these things are important. And then if at the same time, if they still aren't on board, they don't share the same vision as you, then maybe they aren't the right fit for your team and your culture. So why is morning huddle important, guys? Like, why is this such a big deal? Why is this something that my organization had been missing, and that we put a lot of focus into revamping and making, a part of our daily routine? The number one thing to me, and the reason why morning huddle is so important to me, is because I feel like it's the way to ensure that the entire team gets into the right mindset to start the day on the right foot. So, your entire team needs to be on their A game, when they're seeing patients, dealing with patients, talking with patients, dealing with each other, just being good teammates. And we all have a million things going on in life. Your babysitter called out, your washing machine broke down, you got a flat tire, whatever else is going on outside the office. we need to get to the office and we need to leave those things behind so that we are ready to give our patients the best versions of ourselves. And that is true for every member of your team, from your front office personnel to your dental hygienist, to your assistants, to your doctors, to you, if you're clinically working in your practice. And we all struggle with kind of leaving some of those things at the door. So to me, Morning Huddle is that opportunity for everybody to gather together. And as a dental team, as a dental family, we are going to get ourselves into the right mindset. My number one role for Morning Huddle is that morning huddles are meant to be a positive experience. Morning huddles are not the time to vent. Morning huddles are not the time to talk about what went wrong yesterday.
No.
Morning huddles are the time to celebrate those things that went well. And so, the way that we start our morning huddles is we've got this little bowl, and in the bowl we've got kind of folded up papers, and we call these love bombs. And you guys may have heard me talk about this before, but essentially what a love bomb is, when a team member observes another team member doing something that displays their core values, they went above and beyond to help out a patient or help out another team member, they write a love bomb to that employee. So it could be something like, hey, Susie went out of her way to flip that room, that wasn't hers because she saw that I was running behind. Thank you so much. You're such a great teammate. I love working with you, that type of a thing. So it can be something just really quick, to the point. And we start the morning huddles by showing gratitude for our team members. And the cool thing is, if you start doing this consistently.
Are the love bombs anonymous, or do they know who they came from?
No, they know who they came from.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay, cool.
To somebody, from somebody.
Oh, nice.
Guys, again, like anything else, if you start to do these things consistently, at first you may get some resistance. You may not have a lot of team members participating. But as you start to gain that experience of, hey, we're reading these, people get excited. People get excited to share, to have their love bomb shared where they're shouting out another team member. People get excited when they're part of a love bomb. And these aren't only exclusive to morning huddles. We also now have a company-wide, for all of the offices, a WhatsApp chat. And our leaders throughout the week send out these virtual message love bombs in this group chat, so that we're really just trying to create unity among our organization. We're trying to create gratitude for each other. And so that's the way that we start the morning huddles. We get on the right foot. Other things that we talk about in morning huddle that are positive. We celebrate same-day treatment. So this was an idea I got from another doc, which I thought was awesome. Obviously same-day treatment is huge. And, it's kind of like a cheat code. So, if team members worked in a patient to, get an emergency root canal crown done during the busy schedule yesterday or whatever it is, we're going to celebrate those things during morning huddle. Once you kind of get through the intro phase and, you're starting with that positivity, and there's a lot of different things you can do. It doesn't have to be the love bombs necessarily. I know a doc whose team, they start by meditating. And, some of you may think that sounds silly, but I think that there's a lot of power in things like mindfulness and meditation. And that's their way to kind of bring out that inner peace for their whole group.
Docs might think it's silly, right? So some docs listening right now, he says something in the morning like, morning huddles for staff, not for me, right? He might think that's silly. But I'll tell you is, a doc that puts the attention in to say, hey, we're going to meditate together in the morning and be positive, he's probably putting a lot of attention in a lot of places. I get that he's doing more collections than the doc that's like, morning huddles for the staff, not for me. The guy says, listen, if you're putting any attention on morning huddle and you want to make it this way for your culture of your practice, the fact you're putting that energy and planning behind it, if it's finger painting or it's doing meditation and doing love bombs, right? The difference is you're putting effort into the morning huddle and you're making it something that is impactful for your practice. That's what matters.
I'm with you, Matt. And so, guys, keep in mind these morning huddles, they should be short. You shouldn't have your team there an hour before the first patient and going through this big formal meeting. That's what team meetings are for. So again, to me, the most important thing to me is that we are getting our entire team together in that right mindset. We're celebrating each other. We're celebrating victories from yesterday, like same-day treatment, or, a patient that we really helped out that was really happy. We're reminding ourselves of our core values, of our mission statement, what we're really here for. Our mission of our organization is really simple, guys. Our mission statement is to lower the barriers that prevent people from seeking the dentistry that they want and need. It's that simple. Like, we are here to lower barriers for people to help them get dentistry. That is our mission statement. And our core values are teamwork, gratitude, and grit. So we kind of remind ourselves of what we're about, why we're here. As far as going through the schedule, I've been in offices where they just literally run through every single patient and talk about them. And, I feel like this is why some people find morning huddles not effective. I don't think that's an effective use of your time. I think if you want to talk about the schedule, you should pick, one or two very specific things to talk about, whether that is, pointing out times where there's, gaps for same day treatment, and maybe a couple specific patients that have treatment schedule or treatment that's not scheduled yet. Whether it is, something that we've kind of added to our schedule is patients that haven't done Invisalign that have adult ortho coverage from insurance. That's a very easy conversation, with patients like, hey, did you know that you have adult orthodontic coverage? Most people don't have this. And, if you're already talking about Invisalign, that can make it easy to help close another Invisalign case.
I will tell you that I think that one detail, I guarantee there's practices that missed out on 10 ortho cases a year because of that one detail you just said.
Well, and so again, guys, I don't think there's one right or wrong answer, but I think if you're going to talk about the schedule, that day, you should focus on things that are actually going to move the needle, like same day treatment, like holes in the hygiene schedule and how we can fill them, like patients that have that coverage for Invisalign. Now, again, in our practices, my expectation is that we're talking to pretty much everybody about Invisalign. We're getting iTero scans on all new patients and at least once a year. I'm going in, if it's a patient I've seen before, hey, have we talked about Invisalign before? And we're kind of going over the progressing wear and things like that. So like, we should already be doing those things, but it's like a cheat code to know that they also have adult ortho coverage, especially with the Invisalign sales and promos we run, because we'll send that discounted price to insurance. So if they're covering 50% and we're already discounting it, now sometimes the patient's out of pockets as low as like $1,800. You want to talk about an easy way to close an Invisalign case? Have a patient's copay be $1,800 and offer them an in-office payment plan for it. So I do think that you can talk about certain things. Just make sure to pick the things that you really feel like are going to actually move the needle in your practice. They're going to increase production that day, whatever it is. Don't just sit there and have you or somebody else read through the schedule and talk about every single patient, because I don't think that's effective. That's how people zone out. And you're going to end up spending way more time than you really should be in the morning huddle anyways. And you're going to have no time for things like mindfulness and positivity. So that's kind of the middle part of the huddle is, we may talk about a couple things like that. But again, it's really short. It's to the point. We're going to finish this huddle on time so we don't have patients waiting out in the hallway. And then at the end of the huddle, so we start on a very positive note with a love bomb, and then we end on a very positive note where we read a recent 5-star review. And hopefully there's one from yesterday. We really work hard, with our review systems. And if you guys haven't heard the podcast about, how my first startup got 1,400 5-star Google reviews in our first 2 years, go back and listen to it. But we've got a whole system on how we get these reviews. Our team knows to ask for them. So hopefully we've gotten at least one positive review yesterday that we can read about. But if not, we'll pick another recent, 5-star review and we'll kind of read it.
We should revisit reviews. I think it'd be really good to revisit reviews, do an updated review one, and talk about how you incorporate reviews in the morning huddle and put it all in one. Because that is a really good thing to say is, let's just read the most recent 5-star review. And if it's 4 months old, then we know the front desk isn't asking for reviews and we're not doing reviews right.
Well, and that's a good point, Matt. If you want to implement this, hey, let's read a positive review during morning huddle, and you're struggling to find recent reviews to read, then that's a good sign that you've got an issue or a breakdown in your review system. But what I was going to say is the other cool thing is, we don't just read the review, but we talk about like why the patient said the things they did. Why did the patient say it was their easiest dental visit ever? Like, what things do we do? What things did we do well, or what things do we do to create that 5-star experience? So we're reminding ourselves of the patient experience that we strive to create every single day. And it's a good reminder for us to go back out that day and make sure we're doing those same things, so we're consistently providing that 5-star experience.
You know what's really interesting is I'm listening to you talk about morning huddle, right? You know, my company that I own, we're the largest partner in our segment with Dental Intel, and we're the third biggest partner, I think, overall, or top 5 or some craziness, right? And if you ever use Dental Intel's morning huddle tool, it ends with something positive. It's a positive message at the end of the huddle. Every morning they generate a new morning huddle with the morning huddle tool inside DI, and it always ends with something positive. I think that's really critical. And they're the biggest like data analytics company in the country. And they have data for like the company. They can see what features you use as a user. And the practices that are using morning huddle in their system pretty consistently are also overall have average higher patient value and more collections, what I'm told by them and the data I've seen. You know, ending on that positiveness and making it a moment of positivity is really critical because it sets the mood for the day. I mean, if you get up and you start on a bad day, I had a rough morning this morning. I had a dentist that was having some issues, and I had to deal with it first thing this morning. And you know, that, if you let it, that could totally derail your day and derail your mood, right? And I really think it's important, like I said, that positivity and the love bombs and looking at the review. And the key is an overall theme of positivity, pushing the ship forward the right direction that you want as a business owner and as the head clinician in that practice.
Yeah, Matt. So positivity is kind of my word of the year for 2024. My leadership team's probably sick of hearing the word positivity. It's kind of like, I think, Matt, with the phrase human terrain. I think I hear you say that phrase a lot. But positivity really is a focus for our organization right now. And I think it's huge. Negativity is like a cancer. And if you've got a bunch of, first of all, if you're the leader and you're always being negative, that's going to feed down to the rest of your team. But even, like let's say you're like me and you're the CEO, but one of your office managers, is just negative all the time. That's going to feed down to their team. Or, let's say one of your associate doctors is negative. That's going to feed down to the assistants and hygienists that they're working with. Or even if one of your dental assistants, is negative, that's going to feed throughout that team. So it's like, guys, we need to make sure that we create a culture of positivity, and it starts with the leader. And so that is something that we're constantly talking about in our leadership meetings, is how we can create more positivity at the office. And so, again, we've got this WhatsApp chat there. Anyone's allowed to write things in there. And sometimes people do share things about a cool thing that they're doing that weekend or whatever it is. Yesterday was my wife's anniversary. So someone shouted us out, and I don't know where they even found a picture from our wedding, probably on Facebook or something, and post that in there. So it's like, but the only rule about what you post in the WhatsApp chat is it's got to be positive. There's no room for negativity here. And that's our biggest rule for Morning Huddle as well. There's no room for negativity. This is not a time to complain about things that aren't going well. It's all about that positive. And I think that will also, just like how the negativity can spread, that positivity can spread throughout your organization as well. So guys, to recap real quick, and we're going to wrap this one up. How to have an effective morning huddle. 1, everyone's got to be involved, even the doctors, associate doctors, whoever it is. If you are a full-time practicing clinically within your own practice, then you should be part of your morning huddle as well. Even though I sit here exempt as CEO, make sure everyone's on time. If people are showing up 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late throughout the morning huddle, it's going to make it seem like the morning huddle is not taken seriously. It's not important to you. You don't value it. So you need to hold your team accountable to actually show up before the morning huddle starts.
Just as a leader, if you don't value it, your team's not going to.
Right. Exactly.
It's not going to.
You need to start with positivity, end with positivity. And then again, in the middle, if you want to talk about the schedule, guys, just make sure that it is something pointed that is going to have ROI and it's going to move the needle. Don't just go through every single patient on the schedule, because that's not an effective way to have a morning huddle. And then the last thing I would say is get your team involved. So, different ways to get the team involved, like with the love bombs. What you can do is whenever the office manager pulls a love bomb, whoever wrote that love bomb, they can have them actually read it. So let's say Susie wrote it about Johnny, then, hey, Susie, get up here and read this love bomb that you wrote. And then Susie can actually say it out loud, what she wrote to Johnny. Same with the Google reviews. You could take turns having your different team members read that Google review and talk about it with the team. So, I think it's a good way to keep people actively interested in the morning huddle if you actually get team members involved and give different team members a chance to speak. And then you got to do it consistently. Like anything else, it can take time to build that as part of your culture. So, give it 60. I always say, give it 60 days. I always tell my team, hey, we're going to try this new thing. We're going to give it 60 days and really give it your all for those 60 days. And I think you'll find by the end of that period, everyone is way more bought in. And now it's just part of your normal morning routine. So I hope you guys found this helpful. As always, if you have any specific questions about morning huddles, feel free to send me an email. It's docvallodds@gmail.com. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a review, share the podcast, hit follow if you're not already following the podcast, hit subscribe. Again, Matt and I do this just to pay it forward. And we really do enjoy sharing the things that we've learned with you guys, but it does mean a lot to us when you take the time to share the podcast and leave a review. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope everyone has a great day, and tune in next week for the next episode.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining. This is a really important episode. Please embrace the morning huddle. Doc, if you're listening, if you're the doc that your practice is struggling, but you don't attend morning huddle, I will tell you, I believe this firmly. Admiral McCraven, who is a SEAL officer, gave a speech one time about life starts with making your bed. If I had to pick something that makes a practice successful that it starts with, and Doc, you controlling and being at morning huddle is where success starts for your practice. So if you're not doing it, the data says you're failing. So please embrace it, Doc. Hey guys, thanks. Have a great day.